Hello and welcome to another NCAA Imperialism video. I think we're at part 12 now, which I think is incredible. A few things that I need to bring up here is a lot of mistakes have been made. Well, not a lot, but a few, and I want to make sure that I can correct them. The first thing is that I have now fixed that Florida Gulf Coast should be in there instead of FIU, so hopefully for some of you that was bugging, that has been sorted out for you. Um, and so yeah, I've got it right there. The other thing is I'm also re-recording all of my mic during this process, so if things don't line up in the same way that they have previously, just so you're aware, I'm kind of trying my best to remember exactly everything that's gone on um, in this video. But again, if you haven't watched this series yet, please make sure you can hit the link for the part 1 video and follow along. The other thing I needed to fix was that the Minnesota Golden Gophers weren't on the wheel for some reason. I don't know how that happened, but they are on there now, so we have that available to us as well. There will be another error that I'll point out later in the video, but that's also been corrected as well. So yeah, hopefully that hasn't thrown people off too much. I know that bugs me when I watch certain videos, but yeah, hopefully that doesn't affect people too much. But we're here and we're going to then look at the first matchup here, and we're starting at Wake Forest. And let's see what direction they're going to try to go in. Looks like they're going down to the southeast, which means they're going to then take on UNC. So a big matchup here in the state of North Carolina. And it is North Carolina that gets the victory. Pretty close game, but it is UNC that takes the lead after the first half and rides that to victory. And so with that, we have North Carolina taking out Wake Forest and getting a nice piece of land into Virginia and a little bit into West Virginia as well. Back to the wheel. Let's see where we're going to head off to next. And it looks like we're headed out west to visit Stanford. Now, what direction are they going to go in? Looks like they're heading up to the northeast, which means they're going to then take on St. Mary's to try to take a little bit more space in the San Francisco area. But it is St. Mary's that gets the win. A close game throughout the first half, but St. Mary's does take a bit of a lead here and ends up moving and getting the victory. And you see the St. Mary Gales now having taken a portion of San Francisco here as well. Victory. But we're back to the wheel again. Let's see where we're headed to next. And it looks like we're headed out to see the Gators in action once again. And what direction are they going to try to expand in? Looks like they're going to try to go south mostly, maybe a little bit southwest. And we're going to say that means they're going to take on the UCF Knights. And after that matchup, we see that Florida has taken the victory. It was a close game, but then Florida was able to take a lead later on and secure another victory for the Gators. And you see now, they've now got a nice big presence in the state of Florida, completely surrounding Stetson. Again, Florida continues to expand. Back to the wheel, and we see where we headed to next. It looks like we're going up to New York to see the St. Francis Brooklyn Terriers in action. What direction are they going to go? It looks like they're going to head off west, a little bit northwest. And that means they're going to be taking on, I think we're lining that up for Rutgers here. So big matchup for them against Rutgers. And unfortunately for the Terriers, Rutgers were pretty dominant against them, getting them straight to the victory. And now we see that Rutgers has taken a nice big piece of New Jersey, and the Terriers are now off of the map. But we're back to the wheel and see where we're headed to next. And it looks like we're off to see Minnesota. They're finally on the board and they finally get spun. And what direction are they going to try to advance in? Looks like they're trying to head to the south, which means they're going to take on their St. Thomas of Minnesota. So a battle of universities in Minnesota. And surprisingly, it is St. Thomas that actually gets the victory here. A close game throughout, but St. Thomas of Minnesota does get the victory in this matchup. And we see here, now they've expanded their purple color more into the state of Minnesota, giving them their first expansion of the series. Back to the wheel, and what do we see next? Looks like we're going to see American University coming up next. See what direction they're going to try to expand in. And it looks like they're headed off to the northwest, which means for them, they're taking on the huge landmass, which is currently Liberty, and taking them on to see who's going to take that piece of land. And it is American that takes land, a bit of an upset here. But Liberty was leading for most of the game, but American was able to come back and take the lead in the end and secure their first victory. And as we see here, American University now takes one of the biggest chunks of land on the East Coast, seeing that they now have land in probably 4 or 5 different states: Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and even up into the state of New York as well. It's pretty incredible for them. Now we're headed off to spin again, and let's see where we're headed off to here. Looks like we're going to see Wisconsin in action and see what direction they're going to try to expand in. Looks like they're going down to the southeast, and that means they're going to take on Northwestern, a battle of Big Ten teams, and it is Northwestern that take the victory here. And they actually were leading for basically the whole game, and this gives Northwestern their first chance to expand. And in this case, they are expanding north into the state of Wisconsin as their first expansion. But we're back to the wheel again, and let's see where we're headed to next. And it is Xavier that is in action once again. Where are they going to try to expand? Looks like they're headed down east, a little bit southeast. And that means they're going to end up playing Ohio. So again, to put better dominance into the state. And Xavier ends up beating Ohio. They ended up taking it close in the first half, but the second half was pretty clearly in Xavier's favor. And they get to expand once again into the state of Ohio, and expanding their territory once again. But we're back to the wheel here to see where we're headed off to next. And it looks like we're going to see Santa Clara in action. So back again to the west coast. And what direction are they going to try to expand in? Looks like they're going up to the northeast. And that means they're going to hit the land that is San Jose State's land. And we're going to get a matchup in the west, which gives San Jose State their first victory, being able to beat Santa Clara pretty handily. They were leading the entire time, and that gives them their first conquest, and they get to push a little bit and get onto the west coast of the United States here, giving their first expansion. Back again to the wheel, and let's see where we're going next. We're going to see North Carolina Central in action once again. They have expanded a couple times already, and it looks like they're going to head off to the north, a little bit to the northeast, which, based on where their logo is, we're saying that's going to point towards Old Dominion, and they're going to get a matchup there. And what that means is North Carolina Central are going to expand even further. They took an early lead, never relinquished it, giving Old Dominion the defeat, and allowing North Carolina Central to expand pretty significantly now into the state of Virginia as well. And we are back to the wheel once again. And it looks like this time we're headed off to see the Purdue Boilermakers in action. They've expanded a fair bit, and it looks like they're going to try to expand going to the southeast, which does mean we're going to get one of the super matchups with the Purdue Boilermakers taking on the Kentucky Wildcats. And it is Purdue that gets the victory here. It was a close game, but as we look at the second half of the second half, we see Purdue pull ahead and gain the victory, which means for Purdue, they have a now big ton of land here as they expanded into most of Kentucky and become a pretty dominant force in this area. But we are back to the wheel once again to see where we're headed off to. And it looks like this time we're going to see the Villanova Wildcats in action. And what direction are they going to try to move into? Looks like they're headed off to the east, a little bit the southeast, which means for them they're taking on the Ivy League school that's the University of Penn. And it is actually an upset where University of Penn gets the victory here. They are actually winning basically an entire game. Villanova did try to catch up in the second half, but Penn had enough to take the victory away from the Wildcats. And I forgot to keep the recording in here, but I have erased Villanova, and now Penn has a nice big dominance area in the state of Pennsylvania. Back to the wheel. And let's see where we're headed off to next. It looks like this time we're going to see the Marshall Thundering Herd in action. And with the spin of the wheel, we're going to see they're going to try to go to the north, mostly the northwest. And unfortunately for them, that means northwest going up against the behemoth at the moment that is currently Xavier. And it is Xavier that gets the win, unfortunately for the Thundering Herd. Xavier really didn't have much of a competition. They led most of the way, and now Xavier has taken a nice big chunk of not just Ohio, but also pushing into West Virginia as well. And we're back to the wheel again. Let's see where we're headed off to next. And this time, we're going to see the Marist Red Foxes in action. What direction are they going to try to expand in? Looks like they're going to the southwest. And from their point, that means we're going to say they're going to take on the Lafayette Leopards out of Pennsylvania. And it is Lafayette that get the victory. Even though the matchup looks close, it's actually the Leopards who are leading most significantly, and now that just means they get to expand north, get to pick up a nice big chunk in the state of New York, and get their first expansion. But we are back to the wheel as we keep things going, and let's see where we're headed off to next. Looks like we're headed to the west as we're going to see Tulsa in action. And what direction are they going to try to expand in? Looks like they're trying to go to the west, which means for them, they're taking on Wichita State. Fortunate for them, that's where their journey ends, as Wichita State pretty confidently defeat them, which gives them an opportunity to expand a little bit further. And we see them push their way further into the state of Oklahoma and expand their territory even further. Back to the wheel. Let's see where we're headed off to next. It looks like we're headed to see Arkansas in action and see where they're going to try to expand. And this time they're going to try to go basically straight north. And in the case of for Arkansas, that means they're going to try to take on the Billikens of St. Louis. And it is actually the Billikens that get the victory here. They took a lead early and they never relinquished it, giving them an opportunity to expand even further in this series, which I think most people would say this is an upset. And for them, now they've been able to expand further south, creating a bigger opportunity for them and creating more space for them in general. But we are back to the wheel. to see where we're headed off to next. And it looks like this time we're going to go to Texas and see Houston Baptist in action. I believe they might now be called just Houston Christian. They're going to try to go south, and for them, south is going to mean further along the coast, which means they're going to take on the Texas Longhorns to try to get their expansion going again. Unfortunately for them, the Longhorns proved to be just too much of a match for them, and Texas was able to cruise to their victory and expand even further. And now Texas has a nice big chunk of the coastline, reducing the number of teams in Texas pretty significantly. But we're back to the wheel again, and let's see where we're off to next. It looks like this time we're going to see the Privateers of New Orleans in action. What direction are they going to try to move in? Looks like they're going to go north, maybe a little bit northeast, which means they're going to take on, looks like they're going to take on Southern Miss from their point of view, if we're looking at the middle of their land. And for them, that's unfortunately their end as Southern Miss pretty handily, and I don't know if I've seen a 100-point score yet in this series, but Southern Miss lay on the offense and get a pretty significant victory. Now that leaves Southern Miss with a nice big chunk into Louisiana, which I believe is their first chance to expand this series. Back to the wheel, and let's see where we're off to next. And this time, we're going to see the Lafayette Leopards being hit. So, second time in this video alone, they're going to get a chance to expand, but they're going to start pushing a little bit to the northwest, which hits the Bearcats of Binghamton, and Binghamton actually are the ones that end up winning. What an incredible sight here. Close game throughout, but it is Binghamton that push away in the second half and get the victory for their program. And just like that, they now have a nice big expansion as they've taken over good portions of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and into New York as well. Back to the wheel. Let's see where we're off to next. And this time it looks like we're going to see UC Irvine. Now some of you may have looked at that and said that there are two UC Irvines. I have fixed that as of now, so the next video will have that fixed. But they're going to go up along the coast, and they're going to try to take on Loyola Marymount. And it is Loyola Marymount that stops UC Irvine's run along the coast. They take the lead, and they don't really relinquish it, cruising to the victory and their first chance to expand. And you see that Loyola Marymount has now taken a nice big chunk of the west coast, and giving them their first expansion. Back to the wheel, and let's see where we're off to next. And it looks like we're going to see the Trojans of Troy in action. I don't know what direction they're going to go. It looks like they're going to head off to the west, and for them, the west just means they have to take on Alabama. And we do see that Alabama takes the victory here. It was kind of close at the beginning. Troy was actually leading for a portion, but once it hit basically the second half, Alabama was able to take the victory pretty handily in the end. And what that means for Alabama is that they now have a pretty decisive hold of their entire state, and also have expanded into Florida and into Georgia as well, which again creates a nice big blob for them. It's just Southern Miss are the only team that have a little bit of control of Alabama. But we are back to the wheel, and let's see what direction we're going to go in here. And it looks like we're going to see UMass Lowell in action here. What direction are they going to go? Looks like they're going to head south, and we're going to say, at least from where UMass is, that means south along the coast, which means they're going to take on Merrimac. And UMass Lowell do take care of business. Once again, they're going to get a chance to expand. They were leading basically the entire time and never were looking back, which gives them an opportunity to push even further south, which takes a little bit more of Massachusetts, which is where they're originally from anyway. So they get a push back into their home state. and we end up seeing the wheel once again. And where we headed off to this time, looks like we're going to see BYU in action. And what direction are they going to try to attack in? They're going to go north, which means I'm pretty sure they're going to take on the oh, I don't remember. Oh no, they are going to take on Utah State. We're counting that in the direction of the arrow, and it is Utah State that get the victory. It was close for most of the first half, and Utah State did have a lead, but then they extended that lead and maintained it, giving them the victory and giving them an opportunity to expand once more, and actually for the first time get to expand back into their home state of Utah, which I don't think has happened until up to this point in the video, or this point in the series. And with that, that is the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. As you can see, the map as it currently is. Again, hopefully I've gotten rid of any of the mistakes that I've made. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.